And we're back, and thanks a lot, everyone, for coming out. We're going to talk about the Avengers again. This is part three in this series of based streams related to Avengers team members through the decades. And we've done the 60s and the 70s, and now we are going to talk about the 80s, basically what team members officially joined during the decade of the 80s. The decade of Michael Jackson, Bruce Springsteen, and Madonna. And any other bands, Dog?
Def Leppard.
Okay, Def Leppard. Okay, Quiet Riot, Motley Crue, Van Halen.
Quiet Riot. Yeah, Van Halen, especially 1984.
Yeah,
Van Hagar also. So
yeah, so Depeche Mode.
Yeah,
Pet Shop Boys.
I don't remember any country because I don't.
And things like that. Anyway, yeah. So anyway, thanks a lot for coming out here, and let's go ahead and start. But before we start, Doug. So thanks a lot for coming back here. And how was your Thanksgiving?
Oh, it was wonderful, nice and quiet, and secluded.
Yep.
So, and then I didn't get sick from turkey and stuff or nothing. So yeah, it was nice and peaceful the way I lived.
Yeah, I didn't have any turkey. I mean, it was just the two of us because of the COVID quarantine, and we just made some fettuccine.
Yeah, that's what that's funny. That's what I kind of did too. I made some chicken and noodles and kind of like an old school chicken paprikash kind of thing. So
yeah. So as long as you have poultry, I guess it's okay, right?
Why not?
Thanksgiving, yeah. So, yeah, it's been an interesting year, and it was definitely a very, very kind of intimate Thanksgiving here. But I'm sure a lot of people had the same kind of Thanksgiving dinner out there. So with that, Dog, I think we should go ahead and start with our roster of the Avengers during the 1980s. And before I go there, there's that comic book cover is one of the most, I guess, recognizable comic book covers of Avengers lore. Okay, basically it was regarding the court martial of the hero Yellow Jacket, aka Ant-Man #1, aka Giant Man, aka Goliath, and basically Henry Pym. And it was a very, very controversial set of circumstances of how he got court-martialed, and very, very controversial scene in this comic about what he did to the Wasp, who was his wife. And I think that's all we should talk about regarding what the circumstances were. But go check it out if you don't know the story. But it was a pretty weird scene. But at the end of the day, he did redeem himself, and that's all that matters, right? So anyway, because we are living in fantasy land here, and redemption is, it's all about redemption. Like, everybody redeems Jaime Lannister for throwing out, Bran Stark out the window. Everybody redeems Theon for basically killing two boys, instead of Bran and Rickon Stark. And yet, after that, Jon and Sansa just treat Theon like a big hero after that. So when he comes back, so hey, go figure, right?
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I never thought of. Yeah, Ant-Man is basically Theon.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, yeah. Ant-Man is Theon in a way, or Jaime Lannister, but not as heroic as Jaime, evidently. So anyway, so let's get into the rosters. And before we do that, let's go have a fun fact, right? Because you are on the Westeros Ninja channel, so there's always gonna be fun facts around. And for this fun fact, let's go back in 2011, where Metropolis Collectibles sold a mint copy of Avengers #1, okay, for a whopping $250,000, Dog.
Wow.
Yeah. So, Dog, would you rather have a house or a comic book in mint edition, Avengers #1?
It depends on how. If I can turn that 250,000 into like 500,000, right? I can be assured that that's going to happen. But other than that, no, I'd rather have something that's physiological needy. Like a home, food,
okay,
shelter, clothing, things of that nature, right?
So if you did have a house and you lacked shelter and you were like freezing in a cold winter night, Winter's Night, would you burn that copy of Avengers #1 just to give you some warmth?
You might have to use it for kindling or something. That's what sucks about comics, when you really think about it. You can't, in the end, you can't eat them, right? I mean, they really, I guess you could try to string them together and make a blanket, maybe, or a quilt or something, but it's probably not going to be very durable. You have to be like in Texas or something.
You could probably eat them for fiber.
I can't think of anything, any other uses for it.
Well, paper is a pretty good insulator. You can probably rip apart the pages and make a paper blanket. It's what hobos do, right? So, paper is a good insulator.
That's true.
Yeah, I think what they used to do is what they still probably do right now. Fortunately, is that they stuff newspapers, inside their jackets, basically to keep themselves warm. It's proven to be a pretty good insulator because it traps air. So, anyway, enough about uses of paper, right? I obviously wouldn't buy a comic book for $250,000, but somebody evidently did. So, and you got to be a really big Avengers fan to do that. So, obviously, unless it was for a long-term investment, where it might go to $500,000 one day. I doubt it, but you never know. So let's go into a recap of last week's Avengers that we covered, and these are from the 70s. Okay, so we already did the 60s. Now we did the 70s last week, and now we're doing the 80s today. But in regards to what happened last week for the 70s, it was we had 8 new members that joined the main team. Okay, I'm not talking about against splinter teams or anything like that. Just the main team that actually people who actually officially joined the Avengers, and they were Black Widow, Mantis, Beast, Moondragon, Hellcat, Two Gun Kid #2 with his powers of perfect coordination, firing 2 pistols, and Miss Marvel and Falcon. So who's your favorite out of this 8?
Oh, definitely it's Two Gun Kid because as we talked about last week, and we know that's Clint Eastwood underneath that mask, right? He's trying to, that's Clint Eastwood's version of the Lone Ranger, basically.
Right. Awesome. Yeah. Two Gun Kid was pretty cool, even though he was an Avenger for like 1 or 2 issues, and then he just went back into time and basically went back to the Wild West. But anyway, great Avenger. One of the greatest in Avengers lore. So let's get into the 80s now. Starting out with Avengers 194, and that premiered in basically 1980. And who do you think joined here in Avengers 194?
194. It's not Dr. Octopus there.
No, it's not on the cover. This person's not on the cover.
It's not. Well, we talked about Vision and Scarlet Witch were already kind of in there.
Yep. They're in the 60s. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You have a robot there.
You got a robot. Oh, is there like some like super android man or something like that? Or?
No. It's not the robot. That robot's name right there was she was called Jocasta, and she was actually built by Ultron to be the wife of the Vision, right? Sort of like the Bride of Frankenstein. Yeah, and then she kind of hung around the Avengers for a while, but she was actually never an official Avenger. Yeah, but her name was Jocasta, Bride of the Vision, or spurned Bride of the Vision, because I guess the Vision wanted an actual human wife in the Scarlet Witch. So, but that was Jocasta. No, in fact, it was none other than Wonder Man officially joined in 1980. His first appearance was actually way back in Avengers #9, 1964. He actually was part of the Masters of Evil, under Baron Zemo. Remember that guy, Baron Zemo? Yeah. And that's him right there in his original costume. We're just talking about how his fists hit like Thor's hammer because he was that strong. And basically, in that issue, basically he sacrificed his own life to help the Avengers at the end of the comic, right? He actually turned cloak on Baron Zemo and actually kind of became a good guy. But then he died for a while, and then I'll give you some more fun facts about Wonder Man. And then Hank Pym actually got a record of Wonder Man's original brain patterns, and that's what he used to basically put into the Vision to make him kind of sentient. He basically used Wonder Man's brain patterns.
I'm getting the
Uh-huh.
Devo vibe from the top right hand corner there, that outfit there. That's totally Devo, isn't it?
Yeah. It's pretty cool. It's definitely cool. I mean, I kind of wish that he had his. I kind of wish that he kept his original uniform instead of reverting to this like James Bond kind of look in the 1980s,
Yeah,
right? Anyway,
looks like the beginning of
mhm.
oh, for your eyes only or something maybe, or
Yeah,
I forgot the one where he starts out and he's got a ski down. That might be oh Spy Who Loved Me. That one.
okay.
I think that's the one. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I don't remember all the opening scenes
yeah.
of all the James Bond movies, but yeah. So anyway, what happened is that he basically died. They had a record of his brain patterns that were put into division, but then he was subsequently revived by his brother, who was the Grim Reaper, somehow, the arch villain, right? The Grim Reaper, somehow, and then way back in 1977. And he actually was a probationary member of the Avengers starting in 156. So it took no almost 30 issues before he became a full time member. But he hung around for a while in the late 70s with the Avengers and basically went on the missions with the Avengers as a probationary member. Sort of like what the Beast was a probationary member and Hellcat and Moon Dragon last week. Anyway, this guy was originally developed as like the Marvel counterpart of Wonder Woman, right? But so as that Wonder Woman, you have Wonder Man, right? So that was really, really original back in '64. And basically, this guy is like pretty much indestructible. Basically, Baron Zemo blasted him with like infused, some ionic energy into him. Okay, basically, changing his entire cell structure essentially, so he can fly. He's basically immortal. He basically lives off of a constant source of ionic energy in his body. Uh, Invulnerability, right? Superhuman strength, speed, agility, stamina, reflexes, enhanced vision and hearing, and power recycling because of he's basically one big battery of ionic energy, essentially. So just like Wonder Woman almost, right? Minus that ionic energy. Or even Superman, right? Almost. Well, I mean, with these powers, what do you think he could be?
I'm trying to think of what. I mean, Wonder Woman's essentially immortal.
Yeah.
She can fly. Well, she can't really fly. She actually um, she uses the currents
Mm-hmm.
of the wind and stuff like that. She basically can use it. She can like manipulate it somehow. And
Mm-hmm.
but I mean, she obviously does it like perfect. She's pretty awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Virtually invulnerable. She is virtually invulnerable actually.
Yeah.
Uh, yep, superhuman strength. She's on par, almost on par with Superman. Not quite, but
Mm-hmm.
Superman's freaking amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, yep, speed. She's like ridiculously fast,
Mm-hmm.
even faster than the Flash. Actually, when you think of like the combat and stuff like that, maybe not like on a dead sprint, but
But just a reflexes.
oh yeah, yeah. Wonder Woman's freaking amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, and it's got the cat-like reflexes too, like Batman. Even he's got that Batman look. You see that Bruce Wayne Batman look over there, and he almost looks like in that bottom left, bottom right hand corner. Excuse
Yep.
me. Uh, yeah, he kind of has that Bruce Wayne look there a little bit.
And that was his costume back like back in the late '80s. He actually joined the West Coast Avengers in the mid '80s, and then he basically got a new costume, and that was his look. And then I think in the '90s, I think he turned into like a being of just constant energy. I'm not sure if you ever went back into a mortal form, but into like a human form, because I stopped reading comics, right? So
Right.
yeah, but that was pretty much the last I heard of this guy. He became like a being of like just pure energy. So anyway, yeah, I mean he's pretty powerful. Like I remember like reading the handbook of the Marvel Universe, and Wonder Man was like rated in terms of strength to be like he could lift 90 tons, which is like right below Thor, and Hercules is like the strongest, right? No, excluding the Hulk, right, whose true strength has never been measured, right? So because it's kind of like unlimited. So Yep, and that is Wonder Man. So that's our first person that joined the main team. Okay, officially joined the main team in the 1980s. And let's get into our next Avenger, and this character joined in Avengers 211 in 1981. So it's right before Yellow Jacket got expelled. You see him right there. And this person's a female character, and she is in the cover here.
She is actually in the cover.
Yeah.
So I was like, when you said female, I was thinking of. Hey, I like that.
Yeah.
Is that? Oh wait, is that?
That's my ringtone.
Tigra.
Yeah, that is correct. It's this person right there, and that is Tigra. Yeah, she joins in 81, right after Wonder Man, issue 211. Yeah, her first appearance was in The Claw of the Cat in 1972 as the Cat. Okay, that was her name, the Cat. And then in Giant Size Creatures #1, okay, in 1974, she changed her name to Tigra. Okay, she kind of looks like a tiger, right? So why not be called Tigra? Anyway, just like a cat, right? Superhuman strength, speed, senses and agility, retractable claws. Gotta have those, right? You're a cat. And evidently, she has some limited mystical abilities. Okay, I mean, she is wearing 2 teeth, right, in her top of her bikini there. So that that implies that she does know something about some mysticism, right? Some kind of magic, right? Because we are in the 70s after all. So
some voodoo going on.
Yeah. So just not really much to say about her. I don't know much about her other than the fact that she just kind of like hung out for a while and then left the Avengers. I think she's back. Last time I read, as part of the team, but to me she was always kind of weak anyway in terms of an Avenger, in terms of being on a power curve, right? It was like
she's like super well known.
Yeah, I mean, yeah,
but she's not like she's not like. I mean, she's known though. I mean, I know her even.
Yeah, I mean, it's like the Avengers always needed somebody that had like super reflexes, and agility, right? First you had the Black Panther, right? Then the Beast came along, right? And after he left, then why not put like a somebody like it in Tigra, right? You got to have that kind of person in your group, evidently. You can't have 5 Iron Mans. Right?
She's like a version of Beast, but instead of like the super intellectual, she's into the mysticism kind of.
Yeah.
I just switch it up on you a little bit.
Yeah. This adds diversity into the group, right? You can't have 5 Thors in your team, right? Because what's the point of having 5 Thors in an Avengers, right? Then you just beat everybody. Right? So it doesn't. So you got to have some weak members, and she was one of those weak members. It's okay. So that's Tigra as our second character that joined up in the 80s, and we're gonna go into Avengers 221. Okay, and that was in 1982. It's one of my favorite Avengers covers, of all time. Here, basically, the core group, like the Thor, basically Iron Man, Captain America decided to take a break, kind of, and then they needed more Avengers. Actually, I think Iron Man and Captain America stayed, but Thor left, and maybe like Wonder Man left, or somebody else left. Miss Marvel or Tigra. I forgot who left. Okay, but a couple left, so they needed replacements. So, and it was pretty funny because in this comic issue, evidently they were just asking random people, like, "Hey, you want to be an Avenger?" And those were the people that they were asking. So, I'll give you a hint. One of the new recruits is on this cover. Actually, they wanted 2 characters, and both of them, are on this cover, but one of them is brand new. How's that sound?
I think I'm going to go with She-Hulk.
Yep.
Because and I'm just kind of deducing because we haven't really talked much about her yet, and I think we're about due for She-Hulk.
All right. I mean, it's a valid guess, and so you don't think it was Power Man?
No.
It's Spidey. Wasn't Spidey?
I think Spider-Man was offered, but I think this might have been the time where the government said no, or somebody in
And
the field said no.
you remember the Dazzler? She was pretty
No,
cool.
I don't.
Yeah,
But I think that we're kind of in that Kiss era.
yeah,
We're painting the faces there.
yeah. I mean, she first appeared in the X-Men, but she had a mutant ability of controlling light, and she would basically be on roller skates the whole time.
Even Hawkeye there, he was my old giant glasses there. It looks like
Yeah. Remember Rom, the Space Knight?
that. He rings a bell.
Yeah.
Rom, that's funny.
Yeah. The Space Knight. That was his title. And then Daredevil, Ant-Man, the Hulk, Doctor Strange, Silver Surfer, Spider-Woman here, and Black Bolt of the Inhumans.
I don't recall Daredevil joining.
Yeah. He's never joined.
Yeah, I didn't think so either.
Yeah, Rom never joined either.
They don't. The Avengers don't like Catholics.
Silver Surfer, I don't think has ever joined.
Doubtful.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah, but you are correct. It was She-Hulk was the new one. Hawkeye was actually the one that actually came back. He was actually kicked out by the government in like issue 190 something, but then he came back, and then they asked him to come back, so he came back. So it was Hawkeye and She-Hulk. But She-Hulk was the new official member that joined up in the 80s, and there she is, right there, right. First appearance, Savage She-Hulk, #1, 1980. So it wasn't too long, after her first appearance, she actually hooked up with the Avengers there. She is a cousin of Bruce Banner's. In fact, how she got her powers was that she received a blood transfusion from Bruce Banner.
I mean, who could have saw that?
And then boom, she now has the powers. But evidently, she has full control over powers, but she can actually go back and forth. But I think she likes to be She-Hulk, so I think she just stays there willingly in that form. She actually has her, full senses, unlike the Hulk, right? She actually has, normal senses, just like her human character does. So. Anyway, we all know what she is, right? She's not as strong as the Hulk, but she does have similar powers, right? The superhuman strength, speed, durability, endurance, and the regeneration powers as what the Hulk has. But just in a slightly weaker form, right? So that is She-Hulk. And then later on, after she basically she quit the Avengers for a while and became a member of the Fantastic Four. Okay, after the Thing left for some other reasons, and then I think she came back to the Avengers after the Thing came back to the Fantastic Four. But yeah, she's been around the block for a while. I think she's probably still part of the team in one form or another, some splinter team out there. But hey, someone out there can probably correct me on the whereabouts of the She-Hulk in 2020. So let's get into our next member that officially joined the main team in the 80s, and that was in Avengers 231. And I'll give you a hint. It's this character right here. She's actually very kind of forgotten in Avengers lore.
So I was going to guess the other Captain Marvel, not Carol Danvers, but
no, yeah. It was Captain Marvel. Yeah. It was the second Captain Marvel after the first one died of cancer. Hey, check this out. She looks like lifting a big tree trunk. It looks like. Is that cool or what?
I think that is. I was wondering.
Yeah. Yes, it is. It is Captain Marvel. Okay, that was her name.
Yeah, forgive me. I forgot her alter ego. I forgot what her name was.
Her name was Monica Rambeau, and
how you gonna forget Rambo?
Yeah, it was before the movie, or was that after the movie?
That's the same year.
1982, same year as the original Rambo.
That's when Rambo came out. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
We had some great films in 82. 82 is great.
Fast Times at Ridgemont High was 82, right?
Yeah, you had The Thing and Blade Runner was also in there. Another one's going to come back to me too, and I'll remember.
Okay. Was E.T. 82 or was that 81?
That sounds about right. 82.
Yeah, I think E.T. was 82, right?
I think that was the other one I was trying to think of.
Anyway, first appearance was Amazing Spider-Man Annual number 16, and then she was a member, but she was a member in training instead of calling them probationary members, because evidently maybe that wasn't politically correct, they started calling them members in training. Okay, so and that started in 227. Then she joined up in 231. So she's only a member in training for 4 issues. But she was actually really powerful. Energy absorption, generation, manipulation. She can like travel, at light speed, turn into basically light, right? And convert her body to any kind of, to any form of energy within the electromagnetic spectrum. So, and she can travel in space. Sort of like the original Captain Marvel could just travel in space, but he can like manipulate, any energy in the electromagnetic spectrum. But she was pretty powerful. She changed her name, I guess, later on to avoid confusion with, Miss Marvel and, the original Captain Marvel. So she became like Photon later on. That was her name, which is actually more fitting considering that, photons, and the electromagnetic particles kind of go hand in hand. So.
Plus, I think even at this stage, I can't remember when like DC decided to just take Captain Marvel over there and just call him Shazam.
I don't know when. I don't know when.
I want to say 1983. They still were calling him Captain Marvel.
Really?
Okay. I'm guessing that. I'm gonna have to go back and check on that.
Why does Shazam have like those shamrocks on his cape? I've always wondered about that question, right? So he had that white cape, right? And those symbols look like shamrocks.
Oh, I thought that was something from like
Solomon. or clover leaves.
Something from like Solomon or something. Or
okay.
I don't know what those are, clovers though.
Yeah, clovers.
See what those are. I thought that was just some symbol, something that Solomon might have wore.
Okay. Shazam. Anyway, yeah. So so Captain Marvel. I don't like that name because it created a lot of confusion. So she changed it to Photon later on, and I don't really know what happened to her. I guess she hung out throughout the 80s, in Avenger comics, and then she kind of disappeared because I never hear much about her anymore. So maybe she's part of some other team out there. But let's get into our next Avenger. And this Avenger basically joined in issue 243, 1984. And he's in the comics. In fact, his name is right there. So.
Starfox?
Starfox, yep. Starfox. And he's actually an Eternal. And fun fact here is that he was Thanos' brother. So Thanos was the mad brother, and Starfox is the good brother, right? They're both Eternals, and basically they're born in Saturn. They basically hang out in Saturn. But anyway, his first appearance was in Iron Man, 55 in 1973. So he was around for a while, right? Basically, helping the Silver Surfer basically battle Thanos during the 70s. And he became a member in training in issue 232. Then to issue 234, I guess he's 243, he becomes, a full-time member. But he isn't as powerful as Thanos, in terms of his raw strength or anything else. I mean, he has superhuman strength, agility, durability, and longevity, like all of the Eternals have. Okay, it's like a part of a group of humanoids that are like more powerful than, say, the Inhumans. They live a lot longer, but that's powerful than the Celestials, who evidently created humanity. But they also created the Eternals too, so go figure. And then the Eternals' arch enemies are called the Deviants, and they're just like really twisted creatures, bad guys. But anyway, superhuman strength, agility, durability, longevity. He can fly through space, and he has psychic control over the emotions of others. So it's like an ultra powerful empath, right? He can actually control your emotions.
Right, that sounds similar. That sounds similar to what we were talking about, Mantis.
Earlier, yep. Control your emotions, and basically,
she has to be. I know she has to be in contact with you, though. It's like she has to touch your arm or something, or.
Yeah, in the movies.
Yeah,
is that what she needs to be? Yeah, I don't know what she. I forgot what her powers were in terms of in the comics, but.
I didn't have to tell you that last week, though, because I was like, I can't remember her having like a super Bruce Lee moment or something where she's like super fighting and stuff, but she's like super durable for sure. Because I think like a meteor or something just like landed right on her face or something because they were laughing about it, and when it happened. So I mean, it's kind of a funny part in the movie, but I mean, she's obviously she can take a punch.
Well, yeah, in the comics, I don't think she can take a meteor in her face. I think she would die.
There was
But
something,
anyway.
I might have exaggerated that a little bit, but something definitely, fell from the sky or something, or a tree fell on top of her or something like that. And
Yeah.
and Drax was laughing about it, and all the other guys were laughing too.
Yeah, could be. I mean, it shows Starfox here punching Thanos in the face, right? That bam.
Mm-hmm.
But that's like a 90s or a 2000-ish kind of like depiction of Starfox fighting Thanos, whatever you want to call him. But anyway, here's the 80s version of Starfox. His name was Eros, the god of love, just like the god of love. So being able to basically control other people's emotions fits his name in a way. But yeah, he was the brother of Mad Thanos. So go figure, right? And their father's name was Mentor. Anyway, so let's get into our next Avenger here. And this Avenger joined in issue 262 in 1985. And this person is in the cover.
Yeah, I got Submariner there.
Yep, that is right. It's Submariner. He's battling Hercules here, but he actually joins up with the Avengers. Yep, and that finally he joins. His first appearance was in Marvel Comics #1, believe it, 1939.
That's what's so odd to me. It's like finally.
yeah. After how many years? Almost 50 years, essentially, between 39 and 85. Yeah, he basically. Marvel Comics #1, 1939, for first appearance, and we all know the Submariner's powers, right? Aquatic adaptation, superhuman strength, speed, agility, senses, and reflexes. He's pretty much Marvel's equivalent of Aquaman. He has Aquaman, mild invulnerability. He flies because he has wings on his feet. Is that cool or what? He has wings. And telepathic control over sea creatures, longevity, hydrokinesis. So he can Aquaman control waters and basically move waters towards somebody psychically? Or does he need his trident for that?
So he might need his trident for something.
Okay. Like yeah, but this guy doesn't need his trident for that.
So check me on that because he's basically a god himself too.
Okay. Yeah.
Aquaman doesn't get a lot of Submariner also. The fish guys don't get a lot of love. I don't think.
Yeah. And I think
our planet's like mostly ocean stuff. It's you'd think that those guys would get a little more love just because. They're kind of watching more area at times.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah,
they're just like, you can control a fish or something, And
a new power of his, which I didn't really know until I looked it up. When I was making this thing, was the ability to copy the powers of oceanic life forms. Because when I was reading comics, I don't think he had that power, so that must have been retconned in there somehow. Sort of like the Black Widow has all of a sudden, has this power of longevity, and slowed, metabolism, so she doesn't age, as quickly as a normal human. So, anyway, bodily water regeneration and marine life empathy, which is all other kind of similar powers to Aquaman, and this was his original look. The typical 1930s to 40s swimsuit, right? And that was one of the original comics. Pretty cool, huh?
Definitely.
Yeah, very cool stuff. Anyway, and that was 1954, I think, this comic.
That's 54 for that one? Okay.
Yeah, the Submariner. So anyway, so he's been around for a while, but he finally joined up. And let's get into our next Avenger. And this is the last one for the 80s, okay? And this person joined in Avengers 278 in 1987, and it's this guy right there.
That's not Doctor Strange.
No, it's not, but you're close. It's a discount Doctor Strange.
Yeah.
And that is none other than Dr. Druid. And he was an old character too. His first appearance was in Amazing Adventures #1, 1961. And look at how he looked like in 61. Pretty crazy, huh? I am Dr. Druid. Anyway, telepathy, magic manipulation, hypnosis, telekinesis, magic detection. He's pretty much of a discount Doctor Strange. Okay, but in Druid form, right? So he was all about like the old magics, right? And I don't know what to say about this guy because it was getting close to when I stopped reading comics or when I stopped actually caring about comics. I actually stopped reading comics in Y2K, but
influenced by acid a bit.
The what?
I think he was influenced by the acid movement.
He could have been. He could have been. Yeah,
and 60s. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, but as I was reading up on this guy, he evidently he died like in the early 90s or something like that. He left the Avengers and basically died. So and he's come back a few times, but then he died again. So he's pretty much like permanently dead now. But I mean, evidently he was pretty powerful, evidently. So I mean, with those kind of powers.
Well, you'd think with a name like Dr. Druid, I mean, he'd be kind of into nature stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
I mean, he's almost like like Blood Raven or something like that. Maybe he's on that kind of power level.
Telepathy, yeah, magic manipulation, yeah, hypnosis, yeah, could be. Magic detection, yeah. I mean, I really don't know, how many mythical or how many magical villains that the Avengers fought. Right? They normally fight like space villains or really overpowered villains with a lot of technology, right? After Disposo, but it's really Doctor Strange's forte, right? In terms of fighting like the magical villains and entities and stuff like that. So. But they needed somebody like Doctor Strange, evidently, back in the late 80s, and Dr. Druid was around, so they picked him. And that is it, dog, for our 80s. We only had 7 characters, believe it or not, that actually have joined the main team in the 80s. But of course, in the 80s, right, then you also had the creation of a splinter team called the West Coast Avengers, which basically was comprised of a lot of old-time Avengers from the main team and a couple of newer recruits in that team, like Mockingbird and War Machine. Were founding members of the West Coast Avengers.
Did Vision go over to that side there?
I believe so. He could have, yeah. He had a Vision, could have, yeah. And Scarlet Witch, yeah. Both of them could have went over to that side.
That side there.
Yeah, Wonder Man went to that side for a while because he was an actor and he was in LA.
Surprising.
Yeah, and I'm trying to remember who else. I think the Thing joined for a while, but then he left. So because he had to get back to the Fantastic Four.
I'm trying to think of the big major stories, that came out, and I'm thinking, the Hank Pym thing was huge back then.
Mm-hmm.
Then the stuff with Vision going on a little bit, him and Scarlet Witch, I think, and there was some other stuff, but
yeah. I mean,
this is the decade of the end.
Yeah, I mean the West Coast Avengers sort of formed right after Secret Wars, and Secret Wars was like the big thing of the 80s in terms of the Marvel Universe, right? Is when you had all the comic book characters, all the superheroes in the Marvel Universe, pretty much being sucked into this planet to fight a proxy war, under the control of this being called the Beyonder.
Yeah.
But that was the big thing, the Secret Wars, and things changed after that. Sort of like in DC, things changed a lot after the Crisis on Infinite Earths. So it's sort of the same thing in Secret Wars. They had to copy DC for that idea too, which is kind of interesting. But I'm a Marvel fan, but hey, that happens. So that is it for, again, it was only 7 recruits in the 80s. Wonder Man, Tigra, She-Hulk, Captain Marvel, Starfox, Submariner, and Dr. Druid. And I might get into the 90s, but I kind of wanted to stop this Avengers series ending in the 80s, because then I kind of sort of not caring anymore about comics, or actually looked at more mature comics. starting, post
I'm trying
Y2K.
to remember when you were talking before, and I can't remember. There
Yeah.
was, comics are usually like on a roller coaster up and down. I'm just trying to think if the '80s were kind of a downslide at that time.
Yeah, I mean the '80s saw the popularity and the advent of a lot of independent comics. So you had the old black and white comics come into vogue. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the original stuff was actually in the '80s, early '80s.
Yeah, kind of
Right.
right after Star Wars, pretty much.
Yeah. Next is
And Star
yeah.
Wars were still kind of. Well, Star Wars ended in '83 there. So, but,
Hmm.
for the bulk of the '80s, you had the remnants of Star Wars, of course, which but you had Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, GI
Yeah,
Joes, Transformers.
yeah. I mean, Dark Horse Comics came into vogue, so Dark Horse Comics started like getting into movie franchises and adapting like certain movie genres. Back in the '80s, like they did adaptations for like Alien, and Star Wars. They got all those licenses. Then you had like First Comics, right? You had Nexus was a popular one for that First Comics did, and yeah, and yet Mirage Comics, but Mirage Comics was basically Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and yeah, some other ones. But yeah, but the '80s had a lot of independence come into play. In the '90s, you had a lot more, but then you also had a lot more
Yeah, '90s. I remember when
issues.
that was like when Spawn came out, and
Yeah, and there was a crash, and everybody heard about like the great comics crash, right? And that happened in the mid '90s because of the
that's
oversupply. Yeah. There was an oversupply of comic books, evidently, or there was.
an interesting question from the chat though. Tom wants to know:
Oh,
Did
I have absolutely no idea.
uh,
I have absolutely no idea if that was the case or not. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me, right? I mean,
they should go back and sue him?
it's everybody loves litigation, right? So that's a perfect excuse to litigate. It's pretty much, yeah, you copied my name, Starfox.
WWF changed its name to WWE at one time, so
Yeah.
I think
Why did they do that anyway?
there was some organization that used that same
Yeah.
acronym or whatever, or initials, and so they were like, "Hey, that's ours. You can't use that."
Didn't they? So
It's like, I know you guys have been using this for 20 some years or 30 years or whatever, but
was WWE before NWO?
uh,
You remember that, like the whole NWO thing?
yeah, I definitely remember
Yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah. So did WWF change to WWE?
I want to say they
before
were still
NWO?
World Wrestling Federation at that time.
Okay, okay,
This would have been mid 1990s.
yeah,
Yeah, NWO came out like 96, 95, 96.
okay,
And I want to say that change came in right, maybe probably before the turn of the century, maybe.
okay. And
Around the time when I had kind of started watching it again, because the NWO was entertaining at first.
yeah, it was right. I mean that was when Hulk
Thanks.
Hogan turned heel, right? So
Yeah, World
like Federation.
Wildlife Federation.
Yeah, it's that organization with the panda bear as their symbol, right?
Yeah, Smokey
I'm
the Bear's
pretty, I'm
cousin.
pretty sure. I'm sure it was the panda bear in there. So yeah. So anyway, yeah. I'm just trying to remember, like when did the name WWF end? Became WWE. Was it before or after NWO?
I think it
So
was after.
yeah, because
That's my final answer. And
yeah, because like I know a lot of the WWF stars back then jumped ship, right, to form like the basis of NWO, right? Didn't Hulk Hogan ship to basically go into the NWO as part of WCW?
WCW.
Yeah.
They
So
went the turn. They had him turn heel.
yeah, so they needed like a replacement for Hulk Hogan, right, in the WWF world.
That was
And
the
I
name
now
of
know who that was.
I don't think
Was
it
it The
was.
Rock? I mean,
I think it was Great American Bash. I know it was in Florida though, where he did it.
yeah. Well, you had NWO had that. You had like Diesel, right? and yeah, Sting or whatever. But was Sting NWO? No, I don't think so. Right? He was always a good guy, right? Does
He
Sting
was
ever
kind of
turn
hanging
involved?
around when he came when
Yeah,
they brought him back to do the Crow Sting,
yeah.
and he was kind of like walking around with him as if like he might join, but
Okay,
eventually he turned baby face kind of thing. He did that reverse
okay,
DDT was his finisher. So he was kind of he'd come down from the Raptors and
okay.
but he was doing that Crow thing.
Yeah, for a while.
And
Yeah.
this was so this was on May 5th, Cinco de Mayo,
Okay.
2002.
2002.
Yeah, that's when that happened when they
Okay.
changed to WWE.
Okay. Okay. So NWO. So
NWO was I would
so
say
yeah. So NWO. I mean,
96.
yeah. So basically, so it was the WWF then during NWO. During the heyday of the NWO, it was still like the
They were
WWF.
WWF
Okay. Still.
and the National Wrestling Alliance
Yeah.
basically had become World Championship Wrestling when Ted Turner basically really took over
Mm-hmm.
and Time Warner. So that's what
Yeah.
Yep, Scott Hall. I think it was
Memories.
Jeff Jarrett match. Might have been Jeff Jarrett and
Did,
Macho Man going at it or something like that.
did Jake the Snake ever go into NWO or WCW, or
I
was he
don't.
always like a WWF guy?
I think he stayed strictly pretty much with WWF until they probably got tired of his crap.
Yeah, and Undertaker always hung out right with WWF too, right? Undertaker never
Yeah, he's
never
pretty
went.
much been loyal to
Yeah.
WWF, and
Yeah.
he might have had some other lower circuits prior to. I just don't recall exactly,
Yeah.
but like yeah, I don't remember. I mean, Undertaker's always been he's pretty loyal to Vince, and that's I would gander. That's what I would guess anyway.
So what turned out to be an Avengers dream, comic stream, ends up being a discussion about late '90s, wrestling.
They were kind of like the Avengers at the time. I mean, look back at we had the picture of the one gal with the face paint like Kiss. Now it's like Ultimate Warrior. That was the difference between like, National Wrestling Alliance and WWF back then. It was like, the WWF guys were all like, Hulk Hogan. They're all superheroes, and supervillains. Whereas the other guys, they have like real names. They use their real names and stuff. Ric Flair. He might be the Nature Boy in between, but he's Dusty Rhodes, the American Dream.
Who is that? Who's the Hawaiian dude that always flung off the top of the rope? Superfly. Yeah, Jimmy Superfly Snuka.
Yep.
Right, that was that guy, right?
His career got pretty much. It's one of my favorite matches of all time. It's him versus Don Morocco, Magnificent.
I don't remember. I don't know that one.
And it was for the Intercontinental title. And Snuka. If you ever get a chance to watch, I think it was like in Baltimore. It might have been. But he jumped. It was the first dude I'd ever seen jump from the very top of the cage, right? And he did the splash. It was amazing. I was like, wow, this guy's amazing. But it like he got like injured during that, and he'd lost a lot of pop too because he lost the match. He actually he threw Don Morocco into the door of the cage, and Don Morocco fell out. And that's how he won. I mean, he pretty much after he'd done that splash, Don Morocco was out, but he basically threw him out of the cage basically. But that's how he lost the match, and it ruined his career.
I mean, I saw a replay once where
after that, the only thing you really hear about Jimmy Snuka is when Roddy Piper just
exactly. Yeah, I was going to mention that. Like, didn't Roddy Piper smash a bunch of coconuts into his face?
Oh yeah, and he was just super rude to him too. It wouldn't fly in today's world.
Yeah. It would definitely not fly in today's politically correct world, but back then it was okay to smash coconuts into a Pacific Islander's face.
Just a Hall of Famer, wrestler, and on the mic, he was like. He reminded me of Jim Cornette. He was like the WWF's Jim Cornette, basically.
Somebody mentioned Texas Red. I never heard of Texas Red.
Oh, Texas Red. That rings a bell. That definitely rings a bell.
Is that an old timer or a new timer kind of? wrestler?
Oh, that's Undertaker. That's what he used to be.
Oh, really? So I didn't know.
Yeah, I didn't recall that either.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right around when he showed up was kind of when I had kind of fallen out of watching it.
Okay.
Like right around when, God, I guess it was maybe around WrestleMania, you know, 6 or 7 or something like that. I know it was after like Hulk Hogan and Macho Man went at it. Then I think Hulk Hogan took on like Sergeant Slaughter or something in there, one of them. But after that, I was kind of like, I didn't really watch until like the NWO and all those guys came, when that was kind of going on. So I watched a little bit. Then after that, I
Yeah,
pretty much stopped
it seemed like
watching.
the NWO like disintegrated for whatever reason, right? And then finally the WWF merged with WCW, right? And then they became WWE, right?
I basically bought the competition.
Yeah, exactly. Vince McMahon, right? So and then all of a sudden he became a wrestler, right? Right,
Yeah,
he got all
he
yeah.
was
It's like Vince McMahon all of a sudden got all jacked up, on
super Vince.
steroids, and he started wrestling as well. So go figure.
But it was a brilliant move on his part because they were getting stomped in the ratings on television. And then there was that one night where they had uh, alluded to a possible match with Stone Cold Steve Austin versus Vince McMahon.
Hmm.
They didn't have the match that night, but
Hmm.
once they announced the possibility kind of it, I mean, it was just like it was over for WCW at that point as far as the ratings. That was it.
Yeah.
WWF took over, and then WCW they got so saturated with all the wrestlers they were bringing in, and then the storylines were just crap.
Hmm.
Look at Bret. What happened to Bret Hart and Ultimate Warrior, of course, too. That's even Sting at times. When you look at what happened to Sting too. The Four Horsemen were just they weren't the same as what they had been. In the '80s. In the '80s they were some bad dudes.
Well, according to the Samuel Knight main event, I guess Vince bought out Japan Wrestling as well. So he's basically became a monopoly.
Yeah, if you can't beat them, buy them.
I wonder if there was any kind of like trust lawsuits basically brought up against Vince McMahon for doing all this.
Nobody that I know has tried to go
Yeah.
after that. No, I'm not. I'm not.
Yeah, I mean, but does anybody care about pro wrestling that much? Even care? So I don't know. I mean, maybe it's better for the product to have it all under control of one person. But I know they have like different. They still have some fringe organizations still around, right? So
Yeah,
it's sort of like MMA, right? There's always like there's always going to be like these fringe organizations running around, right? So
yeah. I don't even recall like who's on them and stuff. I know I saw like it seems like I saw what's that punter? He used to be a punter for the Colts there, Pat McAfee. He was like doing a wrestling thing for one of those other fringe companies, and that was the last I kind of saw of any type of wrestling news.
all right. So I guess we should end it right now.
We're talking.
Yeah. I mean, it was fun talking about wrestling for almost as long as we talked about the Avengers this stream for the past 15 minutes because it was a pretty short stream considering that there was only 7 Avengers actually officially joined the main team. So with that, everyone, thanks a lot for tuning in here, and this may be it for the Avengers. I'm debating whether or not to actually do a 1990s version of this series only because I started losing interest. But you never know. Definitely there won't be a 2000s version, okay? Because that's when things are just starting to blow up. Basically, you had like 30 new members coming in. I just don't want to put the effort into doing these streams.
Yeah,
30,
you're gonna
30 or
come up
40
with some
slides.
crazy
I was like,
storyline, Civil War, and
yeah.
and then
Yeah, Civil War, and you had a bunch of basically in the 90s you had a bunch of relaunches, right, with new characters. It started with the comics crash, and then basically in desperation, all the comic book companies started relaunching titles, right? They started basically going back to number 1, right, when they're at issue 3 or 400 of the original series and went back to number 1 for whatever reason because they were desperate to basically get people to buy their stuff. So anyway,
number 1 on it.
Yeah, put a number 1 on it, and everybody wanted to buy it because then it would be a collectible.
There's 30.
See, that's how it works. Okay, with that, everyone, thanks a lot for coming out, and we shall see you soon. Later.
Laters.